If you watch my videos, you know that our goal is to manage stress and to approach stress in a comprehensive way so that stress doesn't manage you, so that it doesn't run your life, so that you are not subject to all of those negative effects associated with stress. Now, the idea is not to live a completely stress-free life. That's neither realistic nor necessarily good for you. There are certain stresses, certain stressors that are good for you. Exercise, for example, is a good form of stress. So certain stresses make us stronger, make us more resilient, move us forward. All in moderation, of course. But there is so much stress in the world and in our lives that we have to be able to manage it in such a way that we take the benefits of what can be beneficial to us, but we do not fall victims to those other things that are negative in their effects on us, that can hurt us. So that's the whole point, is being able to properly manage stress so that it doesn't manage us. Use what you can use towards your advancement, your advantage, your growth, your resilience, your strength, and then manage the rest of the stuff in such a way that it has minimal effect on you. If you watch my videos, you already know all the different ways that stress can affect you. And I mean negative effects of stress. So it is kind of a no-brainer that we want to minimize that as much as possible. So I want to talk to you about three concepts or three ways of approaching stress or thinking about stress. The first one is avoidance. Now, avoidance isn't always an option, and I already told you that. Life is full of stress, and we can't live a stress-free life. We don't want to live a completely stress-free life because some stress can be beneficial for us. But there are stresses and stressors, situations and people which aren't good for us, which aren't helpful to us. And you may be able to avoid them. Maybe not all of the time, maybe not all of them, but there are going to be times and situations where you can simply avoid what you know will otherwise cause you stress. Now, I chuckle on the inside because I think about family get-togethers, and there's always that one person that maybe gets under your skin or ends up arguing with you or causes you stress no matter what. And when it comes to family, you can't always avoid that. But certainly there are plenty of things in your control where if you know a certain situation or a certain person or whatever the case may be is a guaranteed stressor, guaranteed miserable experience for you, you can certainly make the decision to avoid it altogether. Now, there is another option of reducing your exposure. So maybe some situations, yes, you can avoid altogether. There are people who have individuals in their lives that simply don't serve them, no matter what. It's always an issue, it's always drama, it's always a problem, it's always a stressor. And the best thing they can do for themselves is get rid of that person out of their life. Simply sever their relationship with that person, whether it's through a series of missed opportunities to get together, or just like a Band-Aid, one and done. Whatever the approach, there are people that can be removed from your life, if you will. Or there are situations that can be avoided from now on for the rest of your life, or pretty close to it. But there are some things, some situations, some people where you can't avoid it altogether all the time. That's where reducing those potential stressors comes in handy. So if you can't avoid, you can certainly reduce. If you reduce being exposed to a person or a situation by 50%, just think about the impact that would have on you. So let's say that it's a certain situation that's a guaranteed stressor to you, and you decide to avoid that situation every other time. That's a 50% reduction. And a 50% reduction is huge, especially when we talk about getting rid of a stressor. So if you can't avoid, you can certainly reduce. The third option is to reframe. What does that mean? Well, that has to do with your perception. Sometimes we can get ourselves worked up simply because of how we view a situation or a person or a behavior. And if we only changed our perspective on it, we wouldn't be as bothered by it. So this isn't something that will necessarily be easy or change overnight. It can. Many situations can, and many people can do this. But if it takes you a few tries, it's totally worth it. So if you can't avoid altogether and you can't reduce effectively or as much as you would like, you can reframe. And so now you look at the situation differently. So let's say that there's someone, let's say a family member, because family members are more difficult to avoid because you're family and you're going to find yourself at gatherings, especially family gatherings or holidays or whatever the case may be. So let's say that there's one person who gets under your skin or who, whatever the stressor is that comes with that person. But you can change your perspective. You can either look at them as the most annoying person in your family who always gets you upset and you dread seeing them and you get yourself all worked up a couple of days before you even have to go see them or spend any time with them. Or you can look at it in a different way. For example, you could think, well, I don't know all of their life experiences, or I don't know who may have hurt them or affected them, or I don't know what insecurities that person may feel on the inside where they feel the need to act the way they do. And when you start to think along those ways, and a little compassion goes a long way when we talk about changing our perception and reframing, it becomes easier for you to deal with that person or that situation, that particular stressor, because you approach it differently. You no longer approach it with all of your power handed over to the person or the situation where you're powerless and you're just stressed out by them or the situation, but rather you approach it with an attempt to understand it, or say, even if I don't understand it, something must be a reason for it, something must be a cause, and maybe you even feel a little bit bad for them, that this is how this person feels the need to be, or this is what the situation is like. So changing your perspective, or reframing, in other words, can really make a big difference for you, including taking back your power. Because let's face it, every time we are affected by a person or a situation, no matter what the situation, no matter whose fault, no matter any of that, the bottom line is that if we get stressed out and upset, we have effectively given our personal power to something external to us or someone external to us. And I get it. It sounds a little bit harsh, but at the very core of it, that's what it is. So reframing or changing our perspective is a way where we can get some of that power back. Or ideally all of that power back. It's kind of like, if you think about, as an adult, you probably wouldn't argue with a child. I hope you wouldn't argue with a child. They're a child. They're not thinking in the way that you're thinking. You can try and have a conversation with them. You can try to, work things out with them. But to have a shouting match with a child when you're an adult, well, that's kind of silly, and I hope you don't engage in that. But I use that example as a way of allowing you to take a different perspective on something. So just as you wouldn't argue with a child, choose another approach to a situation that would otherwise stress you out, or to a person that would otherwise stress you out. And like I said, a little compassion can go a long way. So avoid, reduce, or reframe whenever possible, so that you can get your power back and not allow the external stressors to stress you out as much. If you'd like to learn more about a comprehensive approach to stress management, check out the link below.